do the Shakti. She says, okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jayan Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad is Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad-gītā Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta-vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 25th day of July, 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad-gītā as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 18, Conclusion, the Perfection of Renunciation. Text 67 at the bottom of page 706. Uh-oh, she has a different copy. You're not on page 706? No, it's text 67 in chapter 18. You got it? Okay. Idam te na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na chashushushave vacham na cha mam yo abhisuyati idam te na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na chashushushave vacham na cha mam yo abhisuyati idam te na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na chashushushave vacham na cha mam yo abhisuyati idam te na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na chashushushave vacham na cha mam yo abhisuyati. You want to try it, Krish? Idam te na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na chashushushave vacham na cha mam yo abhisuyati. Idam te na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na chashushushave vacham na cha mam yo abhisuyati. Want to try? Okay, not a problem. Idam, this, te, by you, na, never, atapaskaya, to one who is not austere, na, never, abhaktaya, to one who is not a devotee, kadachana, at any time, na, never, cha, also, ashushushave, to one who is not engaged in devotional service, vachyam, to be spoken, na, never, cha, also, mam, toward me, yaha, anyone who abhisuyati is envious. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, this confidential knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. Purport. Persons who have not undergone the austerities of the religious process, who have never attempted devotional service in Krishna consciousness, who have not tended a pure devotee, and especially those who are conscious of Krishna only as a historical personality or who are envious of the greatness of Krishna, should not be told this most confidential part of knowledge. It is, however, sometimes found that even demoniac persons who are envious of Krishna, worshipping Krishna in a different way, take to the profession of explaining the Bhagavad-gītā in a different way to make business. But anyone who desires actually to understand Krishna must avoid such commentaries on the Bhagavad-gītā. Actually, the purpose of the Bhagavad-gītā is not understandable to those who are sensuous. And here I must say, and you may not know this, but I've researched it, that Prabhupada would sometimes use the word purpose to mean purport. And that's one of these instances. Maybe we'll change this when we get to it. Okay. Actually, the purport of the Bhagavad Gita, the meaning, the inner meaning of the Bhagavad Gita, is not understandable to those who are sensuous. Even if one is not sensuous, but is strictly following the disciplines enjoined in the Vedic scripture, if he is not a devotee, he also cannot understand Krishna. And even when one poses himself as a devotee of Krishna, but is not engaged in Krishna conscious activities, he also cannot understand Krishna. There are many persons who envy Krishna because he has explained in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the Supreme and that nothing is above him or equal to him. There are many persons who are envious of Krishna. Such persons should not be told of the Bhagavad Gita, for they cannot understand. There is no possibility of faithless persons understanding the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna. Without understanding Krishna from the authority of a pure devotee, one should not try to comment upon the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmiditam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Hare Krishna. Page 706 and 707. So, Krishna is making a very strict rule here. This confidential knowledge. What is that confidential knowledge? Let's run through again. We'll just read the translations to text 65 and 66, which is the essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Krishna said, or says to Arjuna, always think of me. This is now we're reading from 704. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sin-free actions. Do not fear. So the whole Bhagavad Gita culminates in these two verses. And Krishna says in the previous verse, 64, that again I will speak to you this most confidential knowledge. When did he speak it before? Manmana. 9th chapter, last verse. The whole chapter is called the most confidential knowledge. And it's all about devotional service and culminates in this same instruction. Think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and bow down to me. And if you do that, you don't have to worry about any dharma. He said, give up whatever else you may think is dharma. This is the ultimate dharma. Give it all up and just surrender unto me. I will protect you from any sin-free actions. Do not fear, I'll take care. But then in the very next verse, which we just read tonight, it says, this confidential knowledge, guhyatamam, may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. Now this is kind of, what can I say, discordant. It's kind of a little puzzling because we're giving these books out to millions of people. We're not just explaining the book, we're giving the whole book, which contains Prabhupada's explanation. And it's not like we ask at the door, hey, before we let you in on the Bhagavad Gita class or the Sunday class, are you austere? Are you devoted? Are you engaged in devotional service? Then you can't hear the class. No. Prabhupada explains, I think, soon the purport is to come, that this is amazing. It says, but the devotees of Krishna are sometimes more merciful than Krishna himself. Let's say they're less strict. And especially in this age, you practically find nobody who meets all those qualifications without engaging in devotional service. So how are you going to start? This is Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Is that if you just listen to the holy name, chant the holy name, and somehow or other attain the association of devotees, then whether you're, demon number one, or you're completely contaminated, confused, you're impersonalist, whatever it may be, if you're willing to engage in those activities and hear and receive the knowledge, then it's all to the good. You may not become a devotee, you may go away, that may be your only engagement in devotional service, to hear and with all kinds of opposing thoughts about the glories of the Lord or whatever may be a class. But that is in your devotional bank account. There's no loss of diminution. When where Krishna says right in the second chapter, in this endeavor there is no loss or diminution. That means that even a little dancing on this path will protect from the greatest danger, but will also be in your eternal bank account. You begin from that point in your next life, if that's all you do. So this injunction, yes, we should not spend time glorifying the Lord to someone who's an obvious demon. Every time we go on Harinam, we go on the Rath Yatra in LA, which is coming up in less than 2 weeks now. There's always a point where you come, usually it's as soon as you get down, anyway, the route takes you along the main street, and then we go down to the walkway, which is right on the beach. And right at that juncture, there's these Christians, with big signs. Are you saved? You're going to hell, And there's always a gathering there because the devotees are going at it with them, I just keep going with this journey.
Doesn't one of them wear a cow suit?
That may be, in past years, he may show up. So the point is that they're benefiting. They're focusing on Krishna even as an enemy. You have to understand how this works. The perfect example is Putana. Putana was, in my estimation, the worst of the demons. Your skin crawls when you think what her mission is. She's a bona fide witch. There's a certain category of witches who are called Putanas. And they fly in the sky, and they can shapeshift. And their mission is to kill babies, children, and drink their blood. The original QAnon, but it's for real. And she was doing that. She was a professional. And so Kamsa said, okay, you go and kill this baby. Actually, they were assigning, it was almost like from the Bible, the Old Testament. All right, we don't know where Krishna is born now because he's taken away. Kamsa's advisors are telling me. So we'll just kill all the babies born in the last 2 weeks. And she was number one. And yet, so what did she do? Her plan was, all right, I'll sneak into the room where Krishna's, lying there on his cradle, and I'll disguise myself as a beautiful woman. She's actually, of course, the witches are witches, but she'll disguise, and I'll smear my breast with terrible, deadly poison, and then I'll just suckle the baby and he'll die and then I'll leave. That was her plan, and it worked before. So she did that, but Krishna, he's as omnipotent and omniscient as a child, as a baby, as he is as an adolescent. So he immediately, Krishna sees what's going on, but he doesn't let her know. And so she does her deed, and she suckles him, and then he suddenly he sucks out all her life along with the poison. And she reveals a real form, which is, was it 12 miles or 8 miles long? And she's kicking down trees, and and that's Krishna. But what happened to the soul that was in Putana's body? She was purified. Krishna said, she wanted to kill me, but she still suckled me, so I'll give her a position as my wet nurse up in the spiritual world. In other words, as he said in the previous verse here, I'll protect you from all your sin-free actions. So he purified her of all her sins, and she became so qualified that she went back to Goloka Vrindavan and a very intimate service to Krishna. So this is Krishna's mercy. And especially in this age, Kali Yuga, when we're so disqualified, if we had to meet all these qualifications, we couldn't hear the Bhagavad Gita. But Lord Chaitanya and his followers are all in this mood of somehow or other attract the minds of these Kali Yugites, and if they come into the association of devotees and they hear the holy name especially, chanting, then they can be purified. And Lord Chaitanya's pastime shows that. Most famously, of course, of Jagai and Madhai, two fallen Brahmins in Navadvip who had become criminals, drunkards, every description, they've lost. And they would be given a wide berth. People would walk around them, in Navadvip, but they were nasty. Nityananda, the Lord Chaitanya's associate, he and Haridas Thakur were given an assignment to preach in Bengal. They were sent out every day. And Lord Chaitanya had a very simple formula. You tell the people, Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Karo Krishna Shika. Just, I put it into a little poem. Just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions and to others them impart. That others them impart, I added that in, but that's okay. So they were asking the people that, and they were begging them, please chant Hare Krishna. And most of the people, they were pious, and they chanted, you know. But then they saw this people, this crowd of people who were avoiding them, but in the middle of them was Jagai Marai, and they were wailing away, they were drunk, and they were causing a big disturbance. And Nityananda, who were they? And they described it, just as I described it, fallen Brahmins who had become, criminals of all behavior, of all description like that. So Nityananda said, oh, here's my chance. If we can get these two guys to chant Hare Krishna and become purified, then Lord Chaitanya will be glorified all over the universe because his mission, So he tells them, Bolo Krishna, so he's telling them, and they become angry. The first time they were drunk, half drunk, said, what? You telling us? And they started running at them, they were going to beat him up. So Nityananda and Haridas had to run. And Haridas was older. So he was joking with Nityananda, just see what you've done to me. I'm going to perish now because I can't keep. But they were so drunk that eventually they stumbled and fell and they started fighting with each other. It's drunk. So they told Lord Chaitanya when they got back what happened. He said, oh, that's what happens, But Nityananda, he went again and he saw him, and again he asked him. This time, Madai threw a shard of a pot, means a broken piece of a pot, injured Nityananda, blood is flowing, down like this. But Nityananda was completely tolerant. He said, I don't mind, please chant Hare Krishna. I was about to throw another pot, and Jagai came to his senses, held his arm and said, what are you doing? He's a saintly person. In other words, that was the saving grace later on. Yes. So when the commotion, there were other devotees there, they ran back to Lord Chaitanya and they told him what happened. He became furious. Lord Nityananda is injured. He invoked his chakra and he comes running there and he's going to annihilate them. And Nityananda said, no. First of all, Jagai saved me the second time. And he said, oh, so Lord Chaitanya said, oh, very good. And by that time, Jagai had come to his senses. He was bowing down, asking for mercy, and Lord Chaitanya gave him prema bhakti. So Madai said, oh, maybe I can get the same thing. But he said, no, you have to get the mercy of Nityananda. And he begged Nityananda to forgive him, and he did. And they became very advanced devotees. Lord Chaitanya said to all the other devotees, forget about their past. They're purified now. They've surrendered to me, and they're pure devotees, and so you treat them as such. There's more to the story, how they were repentant of what they did before, but that's not important. So that's very important for all of us. We may not be as obviously contaminated as Jagai Madai, but the age is so contaminating that practically you can't find someone who meets these criteria or is ready to. But so how can they be saved? They can be saved by the mercy of a Vaishnava. Hari Bol Andre. And because Bhagavad-gītā is going out all over, all languages, all places, And let's face it, people get these books, they read a little bit, and then many of them end up in the trash. It's true. But sometimes they say, well, I paid, $10 for a book, let me take it home, and they put it on the shelf, they don't read it. But 10 years later, their little child who was only 5 is now 15. He said, what is this book on there? Reads it and says, oh, that's interesting. And they have a address list in the back. Website, Haribol. Move over just a little bit. Yeah, good. So the point is, the Sankirtan movement is such that this verse is not enforced. Although Prabhupada, he talks about it here, that to really benefit from the Bhagavad-gītā, it helps to have as many of these qualities as possible. Those who are austere, if someone is completely involved in sense gratification, and that's his only goal in life, the chances are he won't be interested anyway. Devoted, engaged in devotional service, to one who is envious of me. Well, the average person doesn't start out that way. But the way Prabhupada writes the book, and the fact that it's part of a whole movement, and you can investigate without investing time and energy and understanding, just out of curiosity. Curiosity, that's one of the pious people who approach Krishna. If you remember way back in the 4th chapter, the 4 type of people who approach, 7th chapter, the 4 type of people who approach Krishna, Arto, Jigyasu, Artati, Jnanicha, Bharatarshava. Krishna describes them as Sukriti, the pious people. So the first is those in distress. So many people go to church and temple, because they're in trouble. Please, I can't pay my rent or whatever. So that's the first kind. And then these are not pure devotees. They're not, whatever, but they're someone who at least come to God. They believe in God. Those who are curious. How many people, they get a little card, they get a little book, something, they get a little curious. They come to the temple, or more likely they get online first, But that's coming in this age through the media. They're curious. So that's good. If they're curious, they can find out more. Then there's the artarti. Now the artarti probably would always say in need of money, which is true. But it also refers to those who are interested in getting a lot of wealth. Like Dhruva. You wouldn't say Dhruva was poverty-stricken. He didn't come, look for God for that. He wanted to get the kingdom greater than his father, greater than his great-grandfather, he was a little boy. And so that was good enough because that he was in search of God. And who came? Narada Muni. And he knew just how to talk to him so that he would take his advice, and he took up. It's interesting because, to get into the kingdom of God, I got to practice some severe austerities here. He said, yes. And you read about Dhruva, his austerities were inconceivable. But mixed in with the austerities was the chanting of the holy name. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And deity worship, believe it or not. He's out in the forest in Vrindavan. He's in Vrindavan forest. That's understood. Madhuvan or something. And so there's a type of deity worship. If you don't have any facility, you take the mud from the little river that's nearby. You got to have some water, so there's got to be a stream at least. So you can make a deity, a crude deity as best you can, worship it, and then back in the stream for the rest of the day as you perform your severe austerities. So he's performing the severe austerities with the desire of getting the kingdom. That's his idea. But at the same time, he's chanting the holy name. Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And he was so austere that he eventually, his breathing, he was slowing his breathing down. He stopped eating, he was just breathing. And he entrained the universal breathing, and the demigods couldn't breathe. So they went to they went to Vishnu and said, can you please do something? He's calling on you. So he went down on Garuda and appeared before Dhruva, and he had this revelation. He's been meditating in his heart on this form of Vishnu, and suddenly he offered his obeisance. It describes the ecstasy. He was in complete ecstasy. And then he chanted this famous verse. He says, Sthana bilashi tapasisti toham tvam praptavan devamanindra guyam kacham vichindvan abhidivya ratnam swaman kritartosmi badam yache. And that last line is very famous. Prabhupada would chant often that. So he says, Sthana bilasi, longing or wanting very strongly a position even greater than my fathers and grandfathers. In other words, a planet. Sthana Abhilashi, I situated myself in heavy duty austerity. Tapasisti toham. But now I've gotten you. Forget about the kingdom. Tvam Praptavan, who is hidden away even from the greatest demigods and munis. Deva Manindra Guyam. Here's that word Guyatabam again. Very confidential. No. So now I realize that kingdom I wanted, Kacham Vichinvan. I was searching for a broken glass, but now I've gotten the divine jewel of your darshan. And then the punchline is, Swaman Katartos Nibadam Liyache. My dear Lord, I don't want anything else. Swaman Katartos Nibadam Liyache. I'm not praying you for just your service, your darshan is all I want. But of course Vishnu said, hey, you wanted that kingdom? Now you have to, I give you the kingdom too. So he was the king on earth. He got his father's kingdom. His father died out of separation because he was offended. And then after that, he gets the one planet in this universe that's not destroyed at the time of annihilation, which is the pole star. So that's his kingdom. So, but the point is this, is that beginning, you can begin devotional service for any motive. You may not even know it is devotional service. But the purification, the power of the holy name especially, is chanting the holy name, Vasudevaya. And the process itself is such that it purifies you, and your motives change. Your desires change, become purified. Chaito Darpana Marjanam. You see? You start out, you come just for the feast, you hear the kirtan. After a while, you say, well, that's pretty cool. Let me check out the kirtan. Stand in the back for maybe the first couple of times. Then you say, tapping your foot to the beat. You know, I said, maybe try that mantra. It's kind of easy, you know, Hare Krishna. And before you know it, you're drawn in. It's free, you know. So that's what we're doing here. And this effort on Srila Prabhupada's part, you know, let me present this Bhagavad Gita as it is in English, so that somehow they can have access to it. And through the English, it became available all over the world in different languages. So this injunction of Krishna is violated by the pure devotees. It's presented. Confident knowledge may never be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotion service, to one who is envious of me. So I'm not accusing any of you of being like that, but it's going out over the internet. You know, anyone can tune in. So we should, and you know, the whole idea of book distribution. Take the book. You know, you're not asking, hey, are you devoted? Are you envious? Yeah, a little bit. No, I can't have the book. No, that's not like that. All right, so should we go on, or go ahead? You got it? Okay.
Yeah, just had a quick question. You mentioned that one may not know that it's devotional service. Is there some examples that you could provide for somebody that's doing something unintentionally, providing service to the Lord?
Oh, totally. Many of you have heard of Jayapataka Swami. No? Anyone not heard of him? He's been serving in Mayapur forever as the leader there. He probably has about 50,000 disciples by now. He was aiming to do that, and Prabhupada suggested he do it. How did he become a devotee? So in the summer of, I think it was the summer of 67, Jayananda, it may have been 68, I don't know. Jayananda was in San Francisco. He was working on the Ratha Yatra cart, in a garage somewhere. Maybe. And Jayapataka was wandering around Haight-Ashbury. They had their first temple, on what was the name of the street? I forget. The first San Francisco temple. Anyway, it was near the park, in the Haight-Ashbury district. And as Jayananda would do, he saw Jayapataka Maharaj, of course he wasn't, I don't know what his name was. He's wandering by and say, hey, can you help out here? I'm trying to put this thing together. You know how to use a hammer? So in that day, the mood was, it's one big family, summer of love, yeah, sure, And so he came in, he started. So as he's helping, to build the car, Jayananda's preaching to him, as he would do. And he became attracted by on that level. And that wasn't the only one. I mean, Jayananda would make devotees like that. And that was how Jayapataka came in touch with Krishna consciousness, and he became who he is now. So he had no idea what he was doing. He was just helping out and just building this thing. And
then I guess the more extreme examples would be all of the, it's how it says that Krishna, when he defeats, his enemies, that they become devotees. Is that also falling in line with that?
Well, that's in spades with Putana. It's a demon trying to kill him, purifies it completely. She gets entrusted. So that's the idea. And there's something, a whole category of service called agyata sukriti, which means unknowingly you do some service, and that may fructify in the next birth, where you get the association. Something happens in your life, that you come in touch with the devotees. All right, let's go on. Text 68. Yahidam paramam guhyam madbhakteshu vidhasiti bhakti mahi param kritva mamai vaishyatya sangshayaha. Now this verse explains why I've been teaching this class since 1989. You can subtract from. For one who explains the supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me. Purport. Generally it is advised, now this is the paragraph of Prabhupada, it is advised in the previous verse. Generally it is advised that the Bhagavad Gita be discussed amongst the devotees only. For those who are not devotees will understand neither Krishna nor the Bhagavad Gita. Those who do not accept Krishna as he is, and the Bhagavad Gita as it is, should not try to explain the Bhagavad Gita whimsically and become offenders. The Bhagavad Gita should be explained to persons who are ready to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is a subject matter for the devotees only and not for philosophical speculators. Anyone, however, who tries sincerely to present the Bhagavad Gita as it is will advance in devotional activities and reach the pure devotional state of life. As a result of such pure devotion, he is sure to go back home, back to Godhead. So, as far as presenting the Bhagavad Gita, now no one presented like Prabhupada, so I took it upon myself in 1990 when I was here to record the entire Bhagavad Gita with the purports. And I thought maybe I get some points according to this verse. You know. Oh, do you listen to it? It's available free, but you have to send me an email. I don't have a website. Dravida 108. It's MP3. Oh yeah, 18 chapters. Well, I have two versions. One is with all the purports, of course, and the other is just the Sanskrit and the English translation you can listen to. Okay, 69. Nata tasman manushyeshu Kṛṣṇa me priyakrittamaha bhavita nata me tasmad anyak priyataro bhuvi. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. Adyeshite cha yahiman dharmyam samvadam avyayo, sorry. Jnana yagyena tenaham ishtasyamiti me matihi. And I declare that he who studied this sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. So this is a nice inducement to study the Bhagavad Gita. Seriously. 71. Shraddhavan anusuyascha shrunuyat apiyo naraha sopi mukta subhalokan prapnuyat punya karmanam. Rasika. Open his door. Yeah, it's a little stuffy in here. And one who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planets where the pious dwell. Purport. In the 67th verse of this chapter, the Lord explicitly forbade the Gita's being spoken to those who are envious of the Lord. In other words, the Bhagavad Gita is for the devotees only. But it so happens that sometimes a devotee of the Lord will hold open class, and in that class not all the students are expected to be devotees. Why do such persons hold open class? It is explained here that although not everyone is a devotee, still there are many men who are not envious of Krishna. They have faith in him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If such persons hear from a bona fide devotee about the Lord, the result is that they become at once free from all sinful reactions, and after that attain to the planetary systems where all righteous persons are situated. Therefore, simply by hearing the Bhagavad Gita, even a person who does not try to be a pure devotee attains the result of righteous activities. Thus, a pure devotee of the Lord gives everyone a chance to become free from all sinful reactions and to become a devotee of the Lord. Generally, those who are free from sinful reactions, those who are righteous, very easily take to Krishna consciousness. The word punya karmanam is very significant here. This refers to the performance of great sacrifices like the Ashwamedha Yajna mentioned in the Vedic literature. Those who are righteous in performing devotional service but who are not pure can attain the planetary system of the pole star, or Dhruvaloka, where Dhruva Maharaj is presiding. He is a great devotee of the Lord, and he has a special planet which is called the pole star. You know, when I'm reading these verses about all about the benefit of hearing the Bhagavad-gītā, and Krishna is speaking here, and I'm just realizing, you know, how much trouble Prabhupada took to present this Bhagavad-gītā. I don't know if you know this, many of you know this, that Prabhupada wrote the whole Bhagavad-gītā while he was in India. And somehow or other, the manuscript was stolen. There's once, I forget what I read there, where Prabhupada thought that maybe his wife did it, because they were trying to keep him from, you know, taking sannyas. I mean, he was... But anyway, be that as it may, it disappeared. And after writing, you can imagine, you know, all the trouble it took to do this, and then it's gone, you know. But unfazed, Prabhupada began it anew when he came to America. He had his ancient manual typewriter that he would type with 2 fingers. And that's how he started out. The first 4 or 5 chapters he typed out before he got a dictating machine, which sped things up enormously. You can imagine, he's just dictating these where he has to type before. However, that added another level of engagement. Apparently no one could type in the early group well enough, you know, to transcribe. You know, it's the whole art. So, talk about miracles. You know, it's nice to hear these miracles. It's a faith building. So, who walks into the storefront? But Neil. We don't call him Bhakta Neil. He wasn't a Bhakta. He was a student at a university, and he because the Hare Krishnas become a little famous. You know, they had Allen Ginsberg and everything, and there was a story in the Times, New York Times. So he asked if he could do his summer study. They were doing a special study with the Hare Krishnas, where he was going to hang out with the Hare Krishnas, and afterward he would write a report for the school, you know. So I said, okay, so he shows up at the storefront, and he tells what his mission is. He says, hey, Neil, you know how to type? Yeah, I'm a pretty good typist. Hey, you think you can transcribe? Yeah. So he became the transcriber. But, here's the but. Because there's always this, and as the movement grew, you may or may not know this, but it's good to remember this. Prabhupada was flying all over the world. He had management things. He assigned the GBC to take some of the management load. In other words, deciding should we or should we not open a temple here? How should we spend this money? What books should we put? So, you know, Prabhupada was trying to escape that, but he hadn't escaped it, so he was very busy. And so he's flying everywhere, and but he wants to write these books, so he gets up early in the morning, like 12 at night, when there's nobody around, you know, and he's there dictating his books. And then when the morning comes, the devotees are there, he has to deal with so many things, you know. So that's how he wrote these books. And so what happens, he's in California, say, and he's just completed one little tape, you know. They send it to Boston for transcribing, and then send the tape back because they're expensive. Money was always tight in the early days. Even then, it was like $3 or $4 for those little specialized tapes you put in. So they record over the tape. So you can imagine, there's only a few tapes extant, especially of Kṛṣṇa book, because the artist Jadharani, she was the chief artist at that time. She wanted to hear the pastimes when she's painting. So she had those copied whenever they would come to Boston and into regular cassettes. You remember those things? I don't know if you know those. And she would listen to those and type, you know. So thank God we got those, you know, the original tapes. But then the transcriber, Prabhupada is quoting all these verses, especially here, you know, in Sanskrit. They don't know what that means. They start typing just to leave a blank space, you know, and go on. So, and also the English, Prabhupada's accent. So then you have the editors trying to decipher what Prabhupada actually said and meant. It's a whole thing. So it speeded things up, but it also added some difficulties. Anyway, that's how he's writing his book, all that effort. And when it finally came out, the unabridged version in '72, there's a beautiful picture of Prabhupada holding that book and beaming, you know. It finally happened, you know. Yeah.
They weren't after they were transcribing, they didn't send it back to Prabhupada to check over it?
No, never. No. That would have slowed things up enormously. Yeah, that's one of the things people don't realize. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that whole thing, but what I'm saying is there's so much effort to put this thing together by Prabhupada and all of his, you know, producers who came after him, and we're able to, you know, enjoy and benefit from the result. And the books are available in so many languages also. So what are you getting here? You're getting the original words of Krishna, of God, right, spoken, as translated by the pure devotee and explained. And you're also getting, so much from the Parampara. Baladev Vidyabhushan, who is a great scholar. That's why he has the epithet Vidyabhushan, the ornament of knowledge. Vidyabhushan is not his last name. Anyway. So anyway, Prabhupada, he dedicated the book to Baladev Vidyabhushan because he relied on his commentary for his own comments, but added his realization. So it's a great treasure. Anyone who really reads it with a little receptivity and devotion will become fascinated and interested and want to learn more. Come, get the classes, come to association, and become a devotee. Some devotees, when they read this book, Vijay is one of them. Vijay is here. He's distributed hundreds of thousands of these over the last. I knew him in Miami in '83. He had joined in '78, right after Prabhupada disappeared. And this book, he read this book, and he said, where are the devotees? He couldn't find them, but he was chanting the mantra. And then he saw the devotees in Key West, and he went to Miami, joined there, and now he's living here, to our great value. It's so wonderful he came here. But he can tell you, and another was Keshava Bharati Maharaj. He was reading this, reading that, reading this, and reading that Gita, and when he read Prabhupada's Gita, he couldn't stop. It took him 2 days, got through the whole Gita, then he looked for a temple and found a temple and joined. I think in California, one of the California temples. It's like that, if you're ready. I didn't get the Bhagavad Gita first. I got the Krishna book, and that was too much. I wasn't ready for all the Leela, I was a meditator, yogi, But then when I read the TLC, the Teaching of Lord Chaitanya, that really struck me, and I became very attached. Okay, you want to make a comment or a question? Okay. All right. 803. All right, where are we? 71, I believe, right? 72. Okay, 72. Kachid etachutam parta Tvayakagrena chetasa Kachid ajnana sammoha Panashtaste dhananjaya. O son of Pritha, O conqueror of wealth, have you heard this with an attentive mind? And are your ignorance and illusions now dispelled? Purport. The Lord was acting as the spiritual master of Arjuna. Therefore, it was his duty to inquire from Arjuna whether he understood the whole Bhagavad Gita in its proper perspective. If not, the Lord was ready to re-explain any point, or the whole Bhagavad Gita, if so required. Actually, anyone who hears the Bhagavad Gita from a bona fide spiritual master like Krishna or his representative will find that all his ignorance is dispelled. The Bhagavad Gita is not an ordinary book written by a poet or fiction writer. It is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Any person fortunate enough to hear these teachings from Krishna or from his bona fide spiritual representative is sure to become a liberated person and get out of the darkness of ignorance. Oh, that's encouraging. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I listened to a lecture every morning of Prabhupada, and I especially like the ones he was speaking in 26nd Avenue. He's really like on fire, And he says the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, because there is a purpose, is to instill faith in you in Krishna. When you finish the Bhagavad Gita, you have faith in Krishna and his representatives, then you're ready to, what's the next step? All right, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I got your beads, Andrea. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Japa beads. So that that faith in the faith is a foundation of everything. Adhar Shraddha Tataksara Sangha. Adhar means at first is faith, and then what's the next step? Association. It brings you into association. But actually, reading is association. You're associating with Prabhupada. Yeah, and with Krishna, of course, too. So this key question is your ignorance now destroyed? And what? Of course, I think we know what Arjun's answer is going to be. All right, here's a key verse. We'll do it. Arjuna Vacha Nashto Moha Smritir Labdha Tratpasaran Mayachuta Sitosmi gata sandeha Kadeshe vachanang tava. Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy. I am now firm and free from doubt and am prepared to act according to your instructions." Purport: the constitutional position of a living entity represented by Arjuna is that he has to act according to the order of the Supreme Lord. He is meant for self-discipline. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that the actual position of the living entity is that of eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. Forgetting this principle, the living entity becomes conditioned by material nature. But in serving the Supreme Lord, he becomes the liberated servant of the Lord. The living entity's constitutional position is to be a servitor. He has to serve either the illusory Maya or the Supreme Lord. If he serves the Supreme Lord, he is in his normal condition. But if he prefers to serve the illusory external energy, then certainly he will be in bondage. In illusion, the living entity is serving in this material world. He is bound by his lust and desires, yet he thinks of himself as the master of the world. This is called illusion. When a person is liberated, his illusion is over, and he voluntarily surrenders unto the Supreme to act according to his desires. The last illusion, the last snare of Maya to trap the living entity is the proposition that he is God. The living entity thinks that he is no longer a conditioned soul, but God. He is so unintelligent that he does not think that if he were God, then how could he be in doubt? That he does not consider. So that is the last snare of illusion. Actually, to become free from the illusory energy is to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and agree to act according to his order. The word moha is very important in this verse. Moha refers to that which is opposed to knowledge. Actually, real knowledge is the understanding that every living being is eternally a servitor of the Lord. But instead of thinking oneself in that position, the living entity thinks that he is not a servant, that he is the master of this material world. For he wants to lord it over the material nature. That is his illusion. This illusion can be overcome by the mercy of the Lord or by the mercy of a pure devotee. When that illusion is over, one agrees to act in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is acting according to Krishna's order. A conditioned soul, illusioned by the external energy of matter, does not know that the Supreme Lord is the Master who is full of knowledge and who is the proprietor of everything. Whatever he desires, he can bestow upon his devotees. He is the friend of everyone, and he is especially inclined to his devotee. He is the controller of this material nature and of all living entities. He is also the controller of inexhaustible time, and he is full of all opulences and all potencies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead can even give himself to the devotee. One who does not know him is under the spell of illusion. He does not become a devotee, but a servitor of Maya. Arjuna, however, after hearing the Bhagavad-gītā from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, became free from all illusion. He could understand that Krishna was not only his friend, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he understood that Krishna factually. So to study the Bhagavad-gītā is to understand Krishna factually. When a person is in full knowledge, he naturally surrenders to Krishna. When Arjuna understood that it was Krishna's plan to reduce the unnecessary increase of population, he agreed to fight according to Krishna's desire. He again took up his weapons, his arrows and bow, to fight under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, we'll finish tomorrow. Let me end with one little poem. So, what can be more appropriate than those two verses? Manmana bhava man bhakto. Krishna says, this is the essence of the Gita. Just think of me, become devoted, worship me, and bow down low. You'll come to me, O friend, I promise you this boon I shall bestow. Reject all other dharmas and surrender only unto me. Your sins I'll nullify, O Arjuna, from anxiety be free. And it's addressed to all of us. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.